Early on in the book, Levi describes his gradual recovery from scarlet fever in the camp infirmary. I lay in a sick half-sleep that was full of baleful thoughts. But, Levi continues, I soon realized that someone else was awake. Now, in the Italian original, there is an interesting ambiguity that is lost in the English translation. It's not possible to get it across. Someone else was awake. In the Italian version, the verb used is vegliava. Now, this does mean to be awake, but it can also mean to tend to the sick, or, especially interesting in this case, to watch over. So Levi's original, mi accorsi che qualcun altro vegliava, carries in Italian a shade of a religious connotation, a sense that he is being watched over and protected. But this is a secular book, an atheistic book, which seeks salvation and grace not in God or angels, but in other flawed, mortal human beings. And indeed, the other person who's awake, who is watching over him, turns out to be another inmate in the infirmary. Encounters with other sympathetic prisoners who helped him were essential to Levi's survival in Auschwitz. And the encounter with others is the key agent of re-enchantment in the Truce. Levi does not shy away from the privation or violence which haunts the war-ravaged landscape that the novel takes place against. But he does also simultaneously present it to us as a land of marvels, and especially of wonderful encounters with extraordinary human beings. They are mortal human beings. They're not divine beings, but they are extraordinary, and they offer a form of salvation and enchantment. I think a lot of readers, what they retain from this novel is the vivid portraits of two people in particular that Levi meets along his way. These are Mordo Nahum, the super Greek from Salonika, and Cesare, the Roman, both of whom have a genius for trade and small-time swindling. Mordo Nahum comes from Salonika, a city which had a majority Jewish population before the Second World War. The Jews of Salonika spoke Ladino, an ancient Jewish dialect of Spanish. And in the camps, they were a very distinctive group. They were known for having a great solidarity with each other, for being a cohesive group. 90% of them were killed during the Holocaust. Cesare is a partly fictional composite figure on Levi's part. He's a character who comes from the Roman Jewish ghetto, one of the most ancient Jewish communities in the world, who also spoke their own unique dialect of Italian. Levi uses the portraits of these two men, Mordo Nahum and Cesare, to record some of the varieties of European Jewish culture which were obliterated by the Holocaust. He also shows just what a great variety that culture had. And he also shows some of the ways in which Jewish culture was not merely part of European culture, but incarnated it. So Mordo Nahum and Cesare are several things at once. They're pragmatic allies in dire straits. They're historical testaments to cultural worlds that were obliterated by the Holocaust. But they're also spiritual guides out of static desolation into the realm of joy and interaction. One of the things that they have in common is an aptitude for trade and commerce. They're both very canny merchants and at times border on swindling. In fact, one of the chief preoccupations of this book altogether is trade and commerce, on being a merchant. So it's a process which is lovingly described and analyzed. Why is there such an emphasis on buying and selling in this novel? Why does Levi seem to get such a joy from selling and bartering and so on? Everyone in this world seems to have something to sell. A chicken, a ride in a cart, a concentration camp issued shirt, a boiled egg. Why is there such a focus on this in the book? One of the reasons, I think, is that it in some symbolic way represents the opposite of Nazism and fascism. The Nazi ideology was about conserving purity, eliminating contamination, as they thought of it, between different peoples. In the world of the truce, depicted by Levi, trade represents the opposite of that. It brings people into contact with each other. Haggling, in fact, forces people to inhabit each other's mental space, trying to put themselves in the mind of the other. So what we get in trade and commerce and exchange is exchange in both a concrete sense and a metaphorical one. The opposite of the brutalizing nothingness of the camps, the novel suggests, is to go out and engage with others, with people different from oneself, in a spirit of inquiry and curiosity, rather than defensiveness or judgment.